Okay, now getting into divine masculine energy, and one thing I'm going to say is I feel like people really like overcomplicate what is divine masculine about, and the same for divine feminine. But right, we're talking now about divine masculine. But I'm just curious, guys. Okay, those who are watching, can you drop in the chat one or two words, short sentence, short phrase? What is divine masculine to you? What does it mean to you? Okay, I'm just going to give a few moments for whatever to come up, right? And I'm just going to say, right, that I feel like, you know, if you look, for example, if we look in our culture, the way that masculinity is represented, and to really understand this, we've got to look at history. And I do think that there comes a point when we talk about going back more than like actually a couple hundred years that we don't really know what happened, right? You know, at the same time, you know, there is some histories, okay, the histories get revised, right? They get changed and so on. But I think when we kind of understand about human nature and we understand about how can we put it? Yeah, when we understand history and we add in what we know about human nature, I think we can start to kind of like piece things together and start to understand. Now, certainly I would say for like the last 1,000 years in Europe and those under European culture, which is pretty much the whole world now, that we've had this influence of Christianity, right, which has had a certain influence on sex and gender. Is put across a certain idea about sex and gender, which has basically involved cutting people off from their sacred sexuality. And as we get cut off from this sacred sexuality and from understanding how absolutely divine our sexual natures are, we also get cut off from our masculinity stroke femininity. So when a man is being taught from a young age that his penis is somehow dirty, or that he shouldn't be touching it, or that it's something that hurts women, and so on and so forth, this is cutting men off from their divine masculine. You know, it's been going on for thousands of years, and it's also happening today as well. Certainly it's been going on for 1,000 years, yeah, we can say, by all, you know, standards, since the Catholic Church started having its way in Europe. Progressively men have been taught that their sexuality is something, you know, something that's kind of vulgar. They're right as a man in an egoistic way, but also something that's kind of dirty and needs to be hidden. So it's created this kind of polarized approach towards sexuality, which I think you can see really, really well in the USA, where you have certain percentage of people who want to sort of ban abortion, no sex before marriage, and so on. And then on the other hand, it seems like every other person in America is wanting to go polyamorous without really understanding what polyamorous is. I mean, when I see the sex coaches from America, I'm like, wow, yeah, you know, it's all kind of go all one way or all the other way. You know, which, yeah, I get that, because I grew up in this really sexually repressive environment, and I guess I thought I liberated myself sexually, but I hadn't. And it was only actually when I found this place in the middle of this connection with the divineness of my sexuality through Taoism that I really started to kind of like understand what sexuality is about and really like be able to enjoy it, you know. So getting back to men, and the average man who wants or thinks that he's sexually liberated, right, definitely in America, but I think all over the world, you know, it's probably going to be like watching loads of porn. I mean, I've written about porn and had, you know, really big kickbacks that how dare I criticize porn, right? You know, I know other people who've written about porn, same thing, got a really, really bad response for criticizing porn. Now, this isn't that there's anything wrong with like naked bodies or images of people having sex or seeing people having sex. There's nothing wrong with any of these, but it's a little bit like, I suppose, you know, you can enjoy a nice home-cooked meal grown in your garden, or you can go to McDonald's as well. And most of what is porn is basically coming from an industry which you know, it's a profit-driven industry, and even though porn is free, obviously it's not free because of the advertising, but also because of the cost it's, you know, giving to people's lives as well through watching it. But it's projecting this idea of sexuality certainly onto men, and I think now several generations are growing up with this idea of sexuality. And obviously when you talk about, you know, people under 18, yeah, who I don't really think are able to certainly watch the kind of videos that you have in pornography generally, you know, when you think those, a lot of, I speak to people who start watching it when they're 10, 11, 12 years old. They're not really able to fathom in a healthy way what it's all about, and to kind of split, okay, this is healthy sexuality from this is not healthy sexuality, and kind of see and understand it for what it is. This whole generation has been influenced. For example, where I live in Portugal, there is unfortunately there's like zero sex education basically, and there's so many young men now just completely educated by porn. I've talked to quite a few people about this, and it's just crazy to see how people are so disconnected and cut off from, I would say it's almost like the tenderness and the love and the pleasure. And it's all this ego based, you know, there's almost seems like nobody even knows like what is a G-spot or like female ejaculation or anything like that. And it's all just about this kind of ego based sex. So when I talk about ego based sex, what exactly I'm talking about is, you know, the whole idea of the man pounding the woman from behind, having a threesome or fivesome and all this. And it's all like, it feeds the ego. And this is what's generally appealing in the viewing, you know, like when we watch a Hollywood movie, it's not real life as well, is it? You know, we're getting fed this idea of the man as a kind of, you know, this idea that the sex god is a kind of like a porn star. And even there's an Italian porn star who's just recently come out saying, you know, talking about, and I know about this already, so even when porn stars are acting, they actually inject things into their penis to make the penis stay hard. The female actresses are taking like painkillers to kind of deal with the pain and sort of numb them out. There's a lot of drug use and so on going on. And basically what's happening is this completely false idea of sexuality is getting pushed onto us when we don't actually have a very well developed idea of what sexuality is. And I just see in the world there's like a lot of like bad vibes, yeah, going on between men and women. I'm hearing this all the time. There's so many relationships are going sexless. The idea that a woman gets older and goes off of sex is rubbish. Okay, there's a reason she's going off of sex, and that can be cured, it can be healed. The same, that the man loses his erection or becomes impotent at whatever age, or incontinent or whatever other problem. None of this is inevitable, none of this is necessary. Men can be in their 80s and 90s and still having sex. The same with women. That's how healthy people are. But we're so cut off from our sexuality. Now, if you look in the old days in China, right, you know, every man would teach his son how to sharpen his sword, which in other words is his massage of his penis, how to massage his penis to keep it healthy. Who does that? You know, when I've talked to people about men, about what they do, and I ask many, many men about how they self-pleasure, and it all kind of seems to be the same, which is terrible for the tendons, the muscles, the blood flow, the lymphatic flow, and everything in the penis, especially if you're tensing as you're doing this. Because when you tense as you're experiencing sexual pleasure, what actually happens is you block up your whole blood and lymphatic system, and this is where all these cancers are actually coming from, the cancers that people are experiencing in their sexual organs specifically. Now, I mean, I myself am a woman. Obviously, I have a divine masculine part in myself and a counterpart out in the world as well. But, you know, I grew up certainly like not in touch with my sexuality, and it left me a big mess. Actually, I didn't understand. I was having all these health problems, mental health problems, unhappiness and so on, really having issues and difficulties in my life. But I never put it down and thought that my sexuality and the negative way I'd grown up around my sexuality could somehow be central to this. Now, when I started to learn how to get in touch with my sexuality, and I started unblocking my sexual energy, and this isn't just something you do overnight, this is something I was putting in 2-3 hours a day, working on these practices to unblock my energy. Okay, I have clients that spend much less time on it and still get amazing results, but the fact is, you know, this isn't something that you just kind of go into unless you're having a sort of, you know, you need to have a commitment to it, and you need to want your results, which I definitely wanted my results, you know, in order for this to start working. So yeah, I mean, these physical problems went away, but it was like I got my life back. I mean, I totally had this huge goal and aim that I wanted to have orgasms, which I wasn't having before. I mean, getting that was really, really cool, but it was way, way more, because it was like something inside me opened up. And that was when I started to live my life. Before that time, I just really hadn't lived my life, like in any kind of like meaningful way, is the truth of the matter. And when we look at like what's going on with men and their sexuality, Panda, I need you to stop barking, please. Sorry. When we look at men and what's going on with their sexuality, the male sexual energy is actually much more volatile than the female sexual energy. This is why when women have sexual problems, we tend to shut down sexually, meaning we don't get orgasms. Women can get vaginismus. Panda, I'm going to put you inside if you don't stop barking. Sorry, guys. Whereas men, when they get sexual problems, it tends to be often, you know, premature ejaculation, or even, you know, when people talk about creepy guys or rapey guys and sex offenders and so on, this is just a kind of a way of the sexual energy that's pushing so hard, kind of leaking out and just making a big mess all over the place. Now, because the male sexual energy is much more volatile, it can be much more harmful. I personally believe the reason that I think in society about 95% of crimes are supposedly committed by men, something like that, I think that has a lot to do with male blocked sexual energy, even if it's things like theft, attacks and so on, not sexual crimes. Because if the male sexual energy is actually flowing, this kind of like behavior is not really going to be something that the man desires to do, essentially. You know, obviously, yeah, you can't say 100% for certain, but I think it plays a big part in what's going on. Now, nowadays, okay, there's all kinds of different, you know, Instagram accounts and workshops and different, you know, sources you can find that talks about divine masculine, and in a sense, you know, I think these can be really useful tools for us to understand. But when we talk about gender or sex, biological sex, I think that one of the big issues about it is that we all have unique expressions of our biological sex. We all have some amount of a divine masculine and some amount of a divine feminine, and it's unique to every person. And these energies are so diverse in each person. When you start saying to people, femininity must be like this, masculinity must be like this, straight away what you're doing is you're risking putting people into prisons and putting people into boxes that they aren't comfortable in. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm actually a huge fan of polarity. It's really been a useful thing for me to start to understand it. And when I started to understand it as a kind of like a trauma response, I had been acting quite masculine in certain parts of my life and not allowing my feminine to flourish because I didn't feel safe in my feminine. And when I started inviting more embodied divine masculine beings into my life and really practicing alchemy with their energy and allowing their energy to balance mine, like, it was an incredible thing that really like healed me on such deep levels and almost helped me to have a better relationship with both my feminine and my masculine as well. Now, if we look from the Taoist perspective, because obviously I'm going to talk about Taoism, you all know that I'm talking about sexuality from a Taoist perspective in this group. And by the way, guys, if anybody has any questions as we're going on, feel free, please, to type these questions into the chat, okay? But when we look at our bodies, like, and how it's actually understood in Chinese theory, Taoism, and so on, we basically see we have these amazing, incredible bodies, which Western medicine sees us as kind of like battling these bodies that are constantly getting sick. They need operating on, they need poisoning and medicating and everything just to kind of keep okay. You know, if someone has premature ejaculation, I've heard of people being given a kind of downer antidepressant and then something for the erection, all a Viagra thing all on top of it, and it's just kind of like you dumb the guy down and then give him like a Viagra. It seems like all a little bit weird and odd the way the body is understood by Western medicine. When we look at it from the perspective of Chinese medicine and Taoism, it's like everything is perfect, everything is just falling into place, and the creator energy is our sexual energy. I mean, I grew up in this Christian home where, you know, when I asked, like, what is God? I remember as a kid, like, drawing this picture of God and getting told I should never draw God's image and people getting really upset at me. I was just really innocent, you know, and me wanting to know what did God look like. No, nobody could see God, right? And there's this story where God lies down and you can just see God's back. Someone saw God's back or something like that in the Bible. I don't know if anyone knows that story, you know. And it never hit me until like years later that there was this same thing of we can't really say what God is. And we can't really talk about sexual energy or where babies came from or penises or vaginas or anything like that. And it was all like the same thing. Now, when I started understanding Taoism, it just all fell into place that God is sexual energy. You know, that is divine. When we say divine masculine, we are talking about sexual energy and penises. You know, when we say divine feminine, we are talking about sexual energy and vaginas as well, you know, in the physical manifestation. Now, as I started to kind of understand about Taoism and understand about this incredible magical sexual energy, which is so much more than what, you know, I would say consumer society sells us this idea of sex as being all these different things, most of which to me are a massive turn off and anti-sex, whether this is from, you know, women getting plastic surgery to sex toys to porn to, you know, everything that's supposed to be sexualized. To me, it's like creating this like plastic kind of fake sexuality. And I think that you get the same mistake with so many people who call themselves tantra teachers. Like I follow other people, I want to see what they say, but when you're kind of like, oh, we're having this tantra gathering and everyone's like sitting around in their lingerie, hey, I have no problem with that, call it a sex gathering. Yeah, why call it tantra? I don't know. Yeah, but you know, everyone's, and they're talking about how to spice up your relationship, but the thing is, what all that people are doing is it's a bit like going, I want to have more energy, hey, drink a coffee, right? Okay, that's not going to give you long-lasting energy. There's almost everything that everyone's talking about, or let's say like 90% of people are talking about to kind of, you know, bring more spark into your relationship and so on. It's just like having a cup of coffee. It's not a long-lasting. What we need to do is like put more nutrients into the body, do more exercise, have a more positive mindset. This is the approach we need to have towards sexuality, because let's face it, right? Us, our ancestors, so many generations, we've so been guided off the path and disconnected from God, down there, vagina, penis, whatever you want to call him or her, right? We are so disconnected from God, we don't even know what to do with our sexual energy anymore. And when they talk in the Bible about these false idols, you know, and this is what I've just mentioned, and it's not that, you know, watching a porn video in and of itself is wrong, or getting a vibrator or whatever. I have a few of the devices, although I don't really use them very much because they're kind of boring to me, I suppose, because I can just meditate and give myself orgasms. So why do I need something like that, I suppose, you know? But when we really get in touch with what the true energy is, now, it's like everyone gets horny. Pretty much everyone gets horny, right? You know, a lot of people might do a very, very good job of shutting their sexual energy down, but we all get horny and we all have that feeling of bzzz, and it's a nice feeling, okay? The thing is, what happens with most people is that when we get that bzzz, all these other different things come up like, oh my God, this is the wrong place to get an erection. Oh my God, should I be feeling like this about this person? So much guilt and shame has been piled on it, not just for years and years in our lifetime, going back many, many generations. It's like we've almost lost the ability to just purely feel that energy. And when we can't actually just feel that energy and just be like, hey, I got a boner, and that's cool, you know? I mean, there are statues of the Buddha that are thousands of years old, and the Buddha is meditating with an erection, you know? Because people knew in ancient times that when the energy flows, the guy gets an erection. You know, today it's almost been turned into this shameful thing. And when there's that shame attached to the sexual energy, how is it really going to be able to flourish? And I think that when we talk about masturbation, okay, there's masturbation, there's self-pleasure. It's like anything, you know, it's like the natural organic food versus the McDonald's or whatever, you know. The average way that most people do touch, the most men do touch the penises, is quite harmful towards the tissue of the penis and what it's actually trying to do. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this whole alchemical chamber thing, let me just add right here that in a couple of weeks I'm doing like a 3-day live event where I'm really going to explain all this stuff about how the body works as an alchemical chamber. But if you just imagine, the source energy comes in the perineum. Hey, guess what that is? Okay, it comes up into the belly, transforms into vitality, comes into the heart, transforms into love, and comes into the brain and transforms into enlightenment. This is a really, really abbreviated description, but what you can see happens is that as the sexual energy rises through the body, we get energy, we heal our body, we get this divine, loving, creative, abundant energy, and then we literally, our consciousness opens and it fully activates us as a human being. Thing is, though, when we grow up, and from a young age most people are taught push the energy down, what happens is it creates a block. And it's not even often rising into the first level, let alone the second level. So people are blocked creatively, people are unhealthy, people are not enlightened, and so on. The sexual energy block, I'm sorry to say this, is responsible for like a lot of this stuff. It's like almost everything that's going wrong with people. If people were actually in touch with their sexual energy, if you are actually in touch with your sexual energy, the impact on your health, not just healing health problems and conditions, but literally rejuvenating your body at a cellular level and essentially like reversing aging pretty much, you know, as well as just feeding you loads of creativity, giving you loads of energy to do things, and literally opening up your consciousness and giving you your vision. Now, let's get back to the god of man, the penis, okay? So, you know, this is what men, obviously people are going to say there's a few exceptions, but if we go on the general rule that men tend to have penises, if there's no physical penis, there's an energetic penis, and if you haven't got womb and ovaries in the physical way, you have also got energetic. So everybody's got the genitals, both the genitals, even if you're asexual, you have an energetic version of it, okay? So I don't want to overcomplicate things too much, but essentially the man's relationship with his masculine sacred sexual energy is dependent on this energy flowing through the body and transforming. This energy that comes from the prostate gland goes through the penis and the testicles. These are all parts of the body that alchemize this energy and obviously mixes with the unique soul of the individual man and amplify him to turn him into a beautiful divine masculine being. Now, I'm just eternally everyday grateful for our ancestors in ancient China, because apparently even if someone's on the other side of the world, there's only like 50 cousins distant or something like that anyways, which is quite crazy. Yeah, but you know, it's almost like these people foresaw the messed up situation we would be in now, and they absolutely documented how this alchemy works, how this sexual energy works, how the energy, the emotions, how everything interacts together. And it's been, you know, recorded by these masters and handed down from generation to generation to generation to generation, coming today to the Grandmaster Mantak Chia, who's learned from 4 different masters. And what he's done is he's adapted these practices to make them quite easily accessible for Western people. They're constantly being adapted because we and the way we think is very different from how people in the East think. But he's handed and passed down these practices where we can actually learn to understand the way we've blocked up the sexual energy, and telling someone, oh, okay, you're blocking your sexual energy with shame. Even if the person knows 100% that's what they're doing, they can't just undo it. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry. And you can even go and sit down with a psychologist for years and years and years and talk it over, and you're not really going to, you know, make so much difference. I mean, a friend recently was telling me she had spent like 10 grand on therapy and still just saying like, whoa, what's going on? It's not doing anything for me. It's not really, you know, it's been 5 or 10% improvement, but basically it's hardly doing anything. The thing is that we can think about this stuff and we can go round and round in the head, but what the problem is we have our original programming with this alchemy system going on in the body, and society has programmed us to work differently. And unless we go in and we return our bodies back into their original programming, we can know 100% what is the right thing to do, but we're not going to do it, because it's like when the energy is blocked, it causes us to think and thereby behave in certain ways that we're not really in control of. So a woman can sit there and go, I really, really want to be connected with my feminine. The man can be, I really want to connect with my masculine. But if your body and your sexual organs, your penis, are full of blocked energies and unprocessed emotions, this is going to block your ability to stand in your masculine. So whether what's going on is that you're needing to rush around and have sex with anything that moves, or you've just shut down your sexual energy because you cannot deal with it, or there's just a host of other things that could be going on. For example, if you're getting responses from women that aren't feeling right, it's because of the energy. If you're not getting the responses you want, it's because of the energy that you're putting off. And, you know, even within marriages, within relationships, when relationships start going sexless, this is because of energy issues and energy problems as well. Now, by the way, just so you know, I did do the training with Master Chia and quite a few of the other Taoist instructors. So I've learned like a whole range of different ways to work with these energies coming from kind of different backgrounds. And I've been certified as a teacher by Master Chia for a number of years now. And I've been, you know, teaching these techniques to clients and finding like just absolutely amazing, incredible results, you know, happening. And I love this way of working with people because in a way it's so simple, and it's really just based on, we don't chase pleasure for pleasure's sake, but we understand that pleasure is a sign of energy moving, and that the sign of the moving energy is health. You know, so recently I had an older client that he was saying he was having problems really getting an erection. We've been going on for a few years. He was feeling kind of down about it. It was like his sexual energy was just kind of like disappeared, and we've only been working together for a few weeks, but he just told me, he said, wow, it's all coming back now, you know. So we've just been unblocking his body, not even working with his sexual energy yet, and he's feeling his self like coming back to life. And it's so powerful when we start going into the energy field and hacking the energy field. I mean, another example that just never ceases to amaze me is, you know, when someone has an issue with porn addiction, for example, and they come to talk to me or someone about it, and it is not a nice issue. I mean, if you've watched porn and you haven't had addiction, maybe it's not so easy to understand, but when these people are just a prisoner to this like sex addiction or whatever is stopping them from having a beautiful connection with their sexual energy. and it's stopping them from appreciating it and enjoying them. And I find again there, just within a couple of weeks of just starting to clear the energy field, it's just the interest is gone, you know. And yeah, this is the first step of this, is we just got to clean out the bodies, and we've got to learn to understand our energy. We need to be able to cultivate it, grow it, move it, transform it, and so on and so forth. And once we get to this place, we can then start going into our sexual energy, because the sexual energy, they say in the Tao, is very volatile energy, and it's definitely true, is volatile energy. And it also amplifies everything that's going on. So when we start working with the sexual energy and amplifying stuff, right, it's going to amplify stuff that maybe isn't very nice, because let's face it, we've all got stuff in here which can be a little bit yucky or creepy or weird or whatever you want to call it. And when we start bringing it up, the sexual energy into the body, unless we're able to look at those things and use the processes to remove them from the energy field, as opposed to think, oh, I don't like that, can I get rid of it? No, it doesn't work, because how many people spend a whole lifetime trying to repress their anger, and it doesn't work, it doesn't go anywhere, because anger cannot be repressed. And the same thing, sexual energy cannot be repressed, except unless causing bad side effects. So now getting back to the penis, the god between the man's legs, right? And this is like something like I've specifically developed with my clients, and working with my clients, because I do the Tao training. I've done a lot of different kinds of bodywork training, tantric and Taoist bodywork training. And what I've discovered, quite similar to the way that women use jade eggs in their vagina to clear out energy blockages and blocked emotions within the vagina, men actually are able to do the same thing. And when men actually get to the point where they have enough skills of working with energy, that they're able to start working with the energy in the penis. So just to let you know, this takes me about 2 months to get clients into this place. The reason being that it's kind of like when you work with energy, it's like there's a specific order of how you got to learn it, right? If you jump in the wrong place and start doing certain exercises, you're liable to cause chaos and cause problems, basically, you know. And this is like real stuff. It happens to a lot of people, that they jump in on the wrong exercises and kind of mess themselves up. You know, if you learn it with someone who knows what they're talking about, who teaches you step by step and knows how to make sure that you're doing it right, you don't have a problem, right? Okay, but what I find is that as men are able to start working with the penis and working with the sexual energy, it's almost like, you know, imagine if you've been looking through like a window, but the window's all covered in like, you know, dirt or the stuff that comes up from the sea, and you can't really see through the window. And then you just start cleaning the window, and suddenly, like, what is his genuine masculine expression just comes out. And nobody can say, you know, how that should be for the individual person, because we're all unique. And I think it's one of the incredible, beautiful things in life that we are all unique. I mean, you can say that some men are more feminine than I am. I've heard that said once or twice, you know. You know, but in a sense, I don't like that sense of saying, you know, some men are more feminine, masculine, because they're just different ways of expressing masculine. And for example, like I know a few guys that are like really professional sports people, like really a lot of testosterone, very physically fit, very big, very, you know, like ideal kind of masculine types. And these guys are, I would just say they're some of the most gentle, soft, loving, sweet people that I know. You know, what we often think of as masculinity, and of course it's completely fine and a fact of life. Yeah, men might sometimes fight, women might sometimes fight. I'm feeling like I want to cast some light on this situation. Let's relocate and see if I can put the light on in here. Woo! That's a bit better. Okay, so now I can see a little bit what's going on from this different angle. Yeah, you know, I think that allowing people to have their authentic expression of their masculinity and femininity, it is so important. But when we connect into these physical organs that we've been gifted by the divine, or that perhaps they are the divine. I mean, certainly a woman's vagina is a portal into the spirit realm, the portal from which new life is birthed. This is certainly true. And a penis is definitely a very, very divine thing. And when a man actually learns how to activate his penis and activate the different reflexology zones in his penis, it does more than just activate his whole body, you know. And I used to laugh and joke about these tantra guys that go on about their magic rainbow penises, but it is like something like this happens, that the penis can actually activate as this kind of like rainbow wand of light, as funny as it is to say this, that sort of correspond with the different 5 elements that can just go inside the woman without needing to move, without needing to thrust backwards and forwards. If you know how to move and work with energy, and you've activated energy, you don't need any of this. You're able to be present and be in stillness. And so I think somebody made an amazing point here about masculine being. I just can't see any of the comments here. Somebody made a really good point when I asked, what does masculine mean to you? That it's about being able to kind of like hold space and be still and be present. And I think there's definitely like a big element of that when a man, and I made a post right the other day on the group, which some people got, some people didn't. I think there's nothing wrong and no shame if it didn't make sense to you, because I can definitely see, like, if you're in a situation where you're, for example, a woman in a relationship with a man who's not satisfying your sexual needs, this is like, or your sexual, I don't even like the word needs, your wants, your desires, he's not satisfying you sexually, because we are meant to sexually satisfy each other in relationships. This is the physical expression of love, you know, unless a couple decides consciously to take a period of celibacy, to meditate and, you know, have spiritual development, which something I've sometimes done and find can be really helpful. But obviously that's consciously choosing how and when to use the sexual energy, you know. Now, we as women, we are, in majority of us, so used to having men want to rush into having sex with us. For a man to actually be in his power, be fully aroused, and yet not rush into it, it's an incredibly, incredibly powerful thing. And for the vast majority of men, you know, and I'm not talking about blocking off your sexual energy, because that's not healthy and it's not a good thing to do, but for the vast majority of men, actually to go in and, you know, to do that, to be in touch with your sexual energy yet not controlled by it, is a really, really difficult thing. I mean, a client of mine, I remember him, you know, we've been working together for a couple of months, and I remember him saying to me, Jade, it's just amazing. You know, he said, the other day I was sitting in the office, I was looking down at my dick, and I was just thinking, I haven't had a hard on like this for over 10 years, you know. But he said it was completely different, because it wasn't pulling him to force him to do something. And when we, and I will be completely open, I used to be controlled by, I used to have very, very strong sexual urges that weren't in a healthy way. They weren't empowered. They really made me just want to have sex just for sex sake, without love and connection being involved. And yeah, this just cut me off from like 90% of what I could have experienced as sexuality, because then my relationships was just based on sex and not on the deep spiritual and healing experience you could get out of them, you know. And just very kind of like in a state of ignorance to what this was all about, I suppose one could say, you know. And yeah, just the guy who said this the other day, he also said to me the same thing. He says, I feel like I have the same virility I had when I was young, but when I was young, it was all this kind of whole thing of it being out of control, whereas now I have it, but I feel like I'm the master of it. And I mean, when the sexual energy is doing funny things, and the more that I've learned about this, the more I've just realized the sexual energy is showing us where we need to improve within our lives. And this is what's so amazing about sexual healing, is that we can go in there and we can work with the sexual energy. For example, me, you know, I've probably told you about this 1,000,001 times, but I'm going to say it again, right? You know, I'd gone for therapy for my anxiety. I'd tried, you know, acupuncture for my back pain, my every list of problems I was having, right? Tried all these different therapies and everything. Nothing was really cutting the mustard until I was just like, screw this. None of it is going to work. I'm not going to heal, but I really want to have an orgasm. And that was when Taoism came to me, and I started doing the Taoist exercises because I wanted to have an orgasm. And the other reason was that to do with this insomnia and post-traumatic stress, or complex post-traumatic stress I had experienced cannabis addiction. I couldn't sleep without cannabis. So those were the two things I was like, I need to get this out of my life. I'm sick of being a slave to cannabis and not having these orgasms. The two were very, very, very much interlinked. And I do find when people are using substances that there tends to be something going on with the sexual energy as well. And so I started doing these exercises. First thing that happened, lost all desire for the cannabis. Started sleeping properly as well. Started feeling alive for the first time. And then after a few months, I started having orgasms, not just one, which was all I really wanted was one, but literally multiple orgasms. And through this whole process, suddenly all these health problems I had suddenly disappeared. And it's interesting because society tells us, oh, come on, you know what? You're worried you don't have orgasms. There's people dying. There's people, you know, with all kinds of huge problems. And what, that tiny little thing, you're making a fuss about it, you know? This is how we're made to feel about our sexuality. You know, I've had people tell me, oh, I've got so many other problems going on. The last thing I need to waste my time on is my sexuality. It's actually the opposite, because when we work on and we heal the sexual problems, we'll actually realize, like, so, you know, on a certain level, so much of our lack of confidence, the way we've been feeling bad, causing physical problems, causing our creativity, and the way that we're showing up in the world to be affected on one level, which can be understood by psychology, but on a much deeper level, when we start looking at the energy field and we start understanding that the sexual problem is a sign of that energy blockage, and that energy blockage is cutting us off from our life force. It's cutting us off from our divine aspects as well. Yeah, this is like a matter of life or death, you know. And I mean, before I started doing this, I had a lot of problems. I had this CPTSD, which was really, really severe. It was down to some experience I had to do with growing up in a cult, right? And the truth is, there are girls I grew up with there that are dead now, yeah, that died in their 30s because of all the stress and the trauma caused by the situation, yeah. And in many ways, I thank my lucky stars that not just am I alive, but I'm alive, I'm healthy, I'm happy, my life is going well. And without this stuff, there's no way, you know, that I would be where I am now. You know, if I would still be alive, I would be in a very, very different situation. And, you know, I guess the reason I'm saying this is I don't want you to ever underestimate the importance of your sexual energy. I mean, something I just have been saying recently is, you know, we're told as kids that our desires are wrong. Someone was just commenting about this on one of my posts the other day, talking about, oh, children use their anger when they don't get what they want, and so on and so forth, as if children need to be punished out of their desires. I don't believe this. I believe our desires are sacred. They are divine. We come into this earth as absolutely perfect, divine beings. We have desires in all kinds of ways. We have sexual desires. We have desires to create. We have desires to do so many different things. We have our natural desires. Then we have the desires that get programmed into us, or programmed as a big mess. That stuff that just, it doesn't belong to us and is not authentic to us. Like when they say in school, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a doctor. No, I don't really want to be a doctor. I'm just saying, you know. And then I build my whole life around this construct of what I thought they wanted me to be. Not that I ever trained to be a doctor, but I did train to be a lawyer, you know. which I'm definitely glad I didn't end up pursuing, and that I got in touch with my sexual energy instead of being stuck as as a lawyer, you know, and that I'm doing this and not that. But yeah, well, you know, when we really, really learn to connect with this incredible, amazing alchemical chamber, this absolutely beautiful, wonderful, divine sexual energy, the energy within our penises, my energetic penis, your energetic or physical penis, you know, we all have the divine masculine, we all have the divine feminine. They're both forces that we need to be in touch with both of them to really be in touch with the divine, you know. But when we get in touch with them, it's like everything just falls into place. All the pieces of the puzzle come together. But it's even more than that, because it's like this energy has the ability to heal the body at the cellular level. It has the ability to open our vision, to inspire us, to give us creativity, and really give us an insight of what is my destiny? What am I here to do? What is my soul purpose? When we're not in touch with the sexual energy, that's always going to be somehow stunted. And that's why we're living in a world full of people that are complaining about everything. And, you know, there's a lot of this whole thing of, oh, I'm going to give and give and give and give to everybody. And people are just giving from this place of lack, which is not nice when we receive someone giving to us from a place of lack. It's yucky energy, you know. Eat this cake, I made it, right? More cake, and take a COVID vaccine as well, right? You know, but when things are being forced on us, they just straight away become a bit yuck, you know, because I guess that's not how it's meant to be, you know. And we are placed here as individual beings, and the individual is not a there's nothing wrong with being an individual. There's nothing wrong with giving love to yourself. I'm sure you all know that. But really understanding who am I? What are my gifts to give the world? Because if we are all shining and really giving our gifts out to the world, you won't have these companies like McDonald's dominating the world and feeding everybody junk food, because all the people that are supposed to be really amazing cooks having their own restaurants are all going to have their family restaurants, and nobody's going to be interested in that junk food. And it goes for so many of the huge conglomerates and nasty, dirty corporations and so on around. They exist only because individuality is stifled and crushed. Now, this isn't supposed to be a conversation about politics, by the way, but, you know, I think when we start looking at this, you know, in the bigger picture, and we start to really understand, look, you know, when I started working on myself, yeah, at first people were like, hey, what's going on, yeah, you know, with you? And I tried to explain what I was doing, and people were just like, oh, you're crazy, yeah, what are you talking about? About another 6 months went past, and then people really, really wanted to know, and they wanted a little bit of the pie as well, and they wanted me to start teaching it to them. And what people were seeing was they were seeing me transforming, and they were like, wow, I want that transformation. Hey, someone just joined that I knew since I was a kid. Emo Ebong, so nice to see you. It's funny when I'm doing these lives and people that knew me when I was a kid show up in the group. So we're just kind of coming to the end of this, unfortunately. I do hope you like watch the replay. I think you're going to find this like super, super interesting. Yeah, I mean, so just to end this off, and I'm going to be doing another one of these lives next week, same time, talking about women, you know. But when we look, men, yeah, where is your divine masculine? And number one, you know, it's in your penis. And it's in your body, it's in your heart, but your penis is really the portal to it. And this is why in ancient times that the lingam, the penis, was really revered. There's so many ancient statues and carvings of penises all over the world, because it is divine, you know. And obviously your masculinity is your thing. It's unique for everybody. But it's only when you're really getting to the stage where you're cleaning and clearing out your own energy field that it actually becomes clear and apparent who you are. What is your divine masculine manifestation in the physical plane? And, you know, how can you show up as a positive force, masculinity, femininity. The world needs so badly to be having, like, you know, just genuine, authentic, divine masculine and genuine, authentic, divine feminine, because the two have just become so obscured and so confused and so distorted that it's really kind of like leading to huge problems within society and within individuals as well, that there's so little of an example of these healthy expressions of masculinity and femininity as well. And also because there's just the lack of conversation about this, and I think the less that people talk about it, the worse that it is. These are conversations we need to be having. If you are a parent, talk to your kid, about sex, because otherwise they're going to get their information from Pornhub. It's that simple. I mean, one of my tantra sisters, she has a son, and she said at a certain age she noticed he started touching his penis, so she started making him little time for him to go and touch his, I think she calls it the his wee time, so he can touch his penis, you know. And he was quite young, and she'd let him have that little time, and after a couple of years he's like, oh, I'm not really interested in doing that anymore. And it's interesting, like a lot of kids at young ages are getting addicted to porn and masturbation, and I think when they're being forbidden from getting in touch with their sexuality, what it does is it blocks the energy, so there's this huge build-up and this need to masturbate and ejaculate all the time to kind of release the tension. Whereas when that tension is removed, it completely changes the relationship with the sexual energy, meaning that one can still touch oneself, one can still experience the sexual energy with self or with others, even in a more profound, deeper way. But that energy, it's like it's is there in an empowered way, instead of it just being kind of pushing at people and taking over people's personality, which I think is just becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And the Italian porn star that I just mentioned earlier, you know, and he's actually saying, and apparently there's literally research papers showing that young kids, teenagers who watch porn are like 3 times more likely to commit rape or sexual violence against people they go on dates with, as opposed to someone who doesn't watch porn. And he's saying, like it's the way porn is now, it's literally causing young people to like rape, you know, other young people, girls as well. Girls are doing it too. So it is. Oh, and the lawyer arrives just as I'm talking about sex crimes. So, okay, without further ado, I want to open up for any questions right now. I mean, when we start to understand our inner divine masculine, that me being more masculine is not a threat to my feminine, having my divine masculine healthy creates a healthy protection for my feminine. And like more and more, like especially around issues like boundaries and protecting myself, you know, like I've in the last couple of weeks I had a couple of big lessons about just being, you know, not big things, but just really important, poignant lessons that I need to be so clear about my boundaries and saying no and yes to what I want, and letting in what I want and not bringing in that which I do not want in my life, you know. And I think that goes for all of us. And the more we are crystal clear about what we want, the more we're going to get it, you know. So you kind of think when a young girl grows up and she doesn't even know where her G-spot is or how to have orgasms, how can she actually have sex with another person in a way that isn't abusive? Certainly it makes it much more difficult to have healthy sexual relations when she doesn't know her own body and she doesn't know what she wants. So, hi there. My dogs are starting to go crazy. I've been here for almost an hour. I definitely agree. Obaro, nice to see you. I think this is the second live. By the way, guys, oh my God, the dogs are all getting really excited because they know it's about time to go out, right? I just want to say I'm going live in 2 days again on Saturday, and I'm going to be sharing a secret. I want you guys all in on it. I hope you're all there. I definitely agree that religion appears to have done a lot more harm than good. Please. Yeah. Sorry about my dogs. I'm gonna need to bring the other one inside. Makita, get here now. Guys, please calm down. There. Never a dull moment, right? You know, but yeah, I think unfortunately religion has been used to control people, and that people are controlled very, very well by their sexuality. When you control people's sexuality, you control people. And that's why, you know, you had sexuality being controlled for so many years by the church. When that started to die out, you started having the sexual liberation movement, feminism and so on. What happened? Porn, yeah? Porn just came along and started controlling people. Instead, start controlling people's sexuality. And when you're controlling people's sexuality, it is the best way to control people because it is the most powerful energy. And if you start understanding that sexuality is your life force, right? And imagine that you're putting a screen on every day or multiple times a day. Many people do put on a screen and look at the screen whilst jerking their penis backwards and forwards and ejaculating. And you actually understand from a deeper perspective what's actually happening to that person. Even just on a psychological level, what it's doing is it's rewiring his brain so he can't experience intimacy with a woman. But on an energetic level, it's like pure vampirism, and the guy will just be losing and losing and losing his energy and losing his masculinity and losing his vitality. And when men start to learn to not repress the sexual energy, but actually to bring it in the body and experience it, and as that energy builds up, the results are incredible. I mean, I have this one friend, and he's like, everything about him, sorry to say, it's like an ugly guy, right? He's short, he's got bulgy eyes, he's bald, he's kind of fat, he's ugly. Everything about him is unattractive, yeah. Yet, the guy is constantly surrounded by women, yeah. He has like 7 girlfriends at a time, yeah. Okay, but what does the guy do? He practices with his sexual energy, and that charge just drags in the ladies, yeah, basically. You know, I mean, I had another client, and he said, by the time he went 3 months without ejaculation, he said literally there'd be like butterflies landing all over him, like women swarming around him, following him. You know, it's powerful, very, very powerful when one starts to learn how to use and bring the sexual energy in the body. Although it's also something you've got to be careful with because you can attract the wrong kind of attention, you know, unless you learn to really, really refine it, which is definitely something I had to do. Like there's been points I start getting harassed a lot, yeah, and I had to really learn how to put a protection around myself and refine the energy so that stopped happening. So it's a skill to learn to work with it, but that's said, it's a way of life. And whilst it takes effort and intention, that effort and intention, it actually makes all the time, it makes you able to use time better, and it makes all the time that you have, it's like everything you start doing more efficiently. I think that's a really good way to put it. You get much more creative, you get much more inspired. And I mean, Ryan, yeah, so when I'm speaking about the energy, she's been feeling the energy to really, really know your yes, know your no. Guys, yeah, this is like so important. Men, yeah, like don't let women pressure you into having sex. You wouldn't want me to let a man pressure me into having sex if I didn't want to. Guys, it's the same for you. You harm yourself if you allow a woman to pressure you into sex. Don't worry about performance anxiety. You won't be respected for just doing what someone else wants to do. Connect with your energy, connect with your sexual energy, connect with your penis. See what you really want on a divine, sacred level and go with that. It is so important to know your yes and know your no and be able to just from moment to moment be able to really be clear about what you want, because you know when we're talking about stuff to do with sexual energy, you know, and obviously there's all these levels of different kinds of sexual assault, but without even talking about sexual assault, you know, bad sex that happens in loving relationships is really traumatic to our body, to our souls, to our pelvic floor, to our energy, everything. You know, this is why all these relationships end up going sexless, because people don't know how to practice sex in the divine and the sacred way. So I want to end by inviting you all to join me Saturday, 6 p.m. UK time. I'm going to be going live and I'm going to be talking about this topic that I've just been mentioning about what is like the secret ingredient to basically create really amazing, mind-blowing sex, lovemaking, sexual connection, sexual experience with sexual energy solo or with another person. So I think that's all with the questions. Now, guys, I just want to invite you, okay, if you're watching this or whatever, okay, if you want to know a little bit more about this, I have a training I'd love to send you. DM me or comment training, okay? Yeah, it's gonna be saved in the group, this, okay? I have another training, guys. Yeah, it's another hour-long training, but it really goes into the details of what the men's sexual practices are about, and even gives you a practice that you can get started with. Either DM me or comment here training if you want that training. Guys, Ryan, you're not a guy, okay? Ladies, I'm going to do this for you next week, okay? But Ryan, I've got something I can send you anyways, yeah? So if you're watching this, guys, and you want that training, just comment training or DM me training, okay? And I also have this, I have so many amazing things I've been making to give you guys. I've got this new tool as well, which is like allowing people to like really like tap into their vision of where they want to go in their life, all via the Taoist sexual energy route as well. But I think I'm going to maybe offer that out on Saturday. Let's see. Okay, all right. Yeah, guys, the training. Okay, I'm going to get my assistant to send that over to you guys tomorrow. Probably he might be here, probably he's not, but yeah. Okay, so wishing you all a divine, gorgeous night, and go and look at the moon, right? And next to the moon is a little dot, which is actually Saturn. I do believe, yeah, it's Saturn. Yeah, right? And apparently this super blue moon thing is not going to happen again until 2037. That's like 14 years. We've got to wait, yeah, until we see it again. It's kind of in the middle of it now, yeah, but go out and watch the moon and connect with that incredible divine energy. I'm going to go out now and do that too. It's like 9 p.m. for me where I am here. So sending lots of love and light, and anybody, Richard, annoyingly cloudy in London. Yeah, the moon is still somewhere up there, isn't it? It still kind of filters down through the clouds and lights everything up, but I suppose London is so lit up anyways, so I think you need to come visit me, Richard, and I'll take you to some beautiful places. All right, guys, I'm so looking forward to Saturday, and yep, that training, and I'm feeling really generous right now, probably because of the full moon. So anybody who wants any more information about this, I'm going to even send you like a second thing or resource or something. So DM me, because I'm just feeling like giving loads of stuff away. All right, even stuff that people usually pay for, if you made it to my live or watch this video. All right then, good night.